Now, this tutorial is just a brief explanation of Vim and Neovim. It is also covering my specific configuration, more of a showcase. I will do my best to cover the very basics of using Vim, but there are far better tutorials out there. So I highly recommend you watch some of those. Just to explain real quick some history of Vim. In the 70s, I believe, there was VI. In the 90s, there was Vim for VI improved. And then in around the 2010s, Neovim came out. So they're all built on essentially the same foundation, all very similar. But for a fresh install of Neovim, it's very similar to a fresh install of Vim. It's really where in the configuration where things get unique. So if you see me saying Neovim or Vim, they're pretty interchangeable. I'm just gonna be saying Vim. To explain some of the beauty of Vim and why I love using it, as embarrassing as that sounds, once you get pretty good at Vim, you will be zipping around the place, coding faster than the speed of light. Now, if you want to be a VS Code Andy for your whole life, that's totally fine. So let's jump into it. So just start by typing Vim, and then let's create a new file. So call it test.md. So this creates a new file. As you can see, if you first open Vim and you have no idea what you're doing, it's probably a little confusing. You might start typing some words and nothing's happening. Arrow keys, it's very confusing. So Vim is a modal editor, which means there's different modes you switch between. So currently I'm in normal mode. You always start in normal mode unless you change that in your configuration. Now if I click I, I'm in insert mode. You can see in the bottom left it says insert. So here I can type. So hello world from Vim. Now if I want to go back to normal mode, I click escape. And then I puts me in insert mode. Now the reason for the two modes is normal mode is really for navigating around your text. So let's say I'm in insert mode, more lines, click escape to go to normal mode. To move, I can use the arrow keys, or I can just, click around, I can highlight, I can do that, but you're really not meant to use your mouse at all. That's kind of the beauty of Vim, is no touching the mouse. To move around without the arrow keys or the mouse, you might be wondering what on earth, how do I do this? So the main movements are H, J, K, and L. So H, actually let's cover J first. So J, down a line, K, up a line. So you can see with J and K, I am bouncing between these lines very fast. Now H is to move to the left a character, so you can see moving there. Now L is to move to the right. So you can see with this, it's the first time you do this, it is extremely uncomfortable and foreign and weird, and you really just want to open VS Code and do anything else, but I promise if you stick with it, it's fantastic. So yeah, that just covers some basic movement. Some other important things to note, you can see I have F highlighted. As I mentioned, I puts you in insert mode, but that puts you in insert mode on the left of the character. So if I start typing, I'm left. Let's delete that, go back. Now if I click A, I'm on the right. So you can type right. What's really important is capital I and capital A. Now if I do capital I jump to the beginning, the leftmost of the line. If I do capital A, I jump to the rightmost. As you can see, if I'm, very long line with lots of words, I don't want to move around. If I wanted to go to the very front, I'd have to hold H, kind of a pain. But the inverse, do Shift A, jump to the end, and then Shift I, jump to the front. It's absolutely fantastic. For copying and pasting, we can do YY to copy a line and paste it. Now, quick note, this isn't your clipboard, it's copying and pasting to the buffer. So what that means is if I YY and then I go to Google and try to paste this, or I go to Notepad, whatever, it will not paste because it's not in my clipboard. I will cover in my configuration how to copy to the clipboard specifically, but that's for later. Now you can see YY, P to paste it. A very important key is U for undo. Simple undo, just like Control Z. Let's say I want to delete some stuff, I can DD, and that'll delete. And then the important thing with DD is it will copy to your buffer. So let's say I have YY. The current thing in my buffer is this line. But if I delete this line, then I click P, you can see it's now more lines. Lastly, for just some basic coverage of working in Vim, do colon, and then this is the command mode for Vim. And I can do W. Now that saves the file. So click W. Okay, colon, W, saves the file. You'll be doing that a lot. Now if I do colon Q, it quits out of Vim, or at least the buffer. Let's go back to Vim test. Most commonly you'll be doing colon WQ to right quit. And then let's say you made some edits and you don't want to save and you want to overdo it, Q with an exclamation point. So otherwise, it'll give you a warning. Yeah. Now, one thing that took me a while to learn with Vim is bouncing between files. This feels very difficult at first, and for a while I was just doing, let's do other.md. Now I have two files. Let's say I wanted to bounce between other MD and test.md a bunch. For a while I was just doing vim test, we typing here, and then vim other. So see, it's really slow to just go back and forth from the terminal. Let's explain the Vim file tree. So by default, the Vim file tree is netrw, but I have mine set up to oil, which is a custom plugin. So if I do Vim and a period, that opens it in my current directory. Now you can see here, I'm using Vim motions to move around the file. So I have the docs folder, the nvim folder, git attributes, then other.md, test.md. Now I can enter other, and I have it set to where minus takes me back to the file tree. So I have the minus, then I go to test. So it's just one way to bounce around. Now this is a great opportunity to explain my plugins. So first, let's go to my plugins folder. I have oil.lua. So as I explained, what you're looking at right now is oil.lua. So it's a file manager, but it's using a Vim buffer. So why is this so cool? So let's say I wanted to create a new plugin. I do Shift A, insert, and I'm in insert mode. New plugin.lua. I do escape. If I do :W, oil will ask me, hey, do you want to create new plugin.lua in this directory? If I click yes, it'll create it. Now, new plugin.lua is an actual file in my computer. So I can return, could, put whatever plugin I want there. Now let's go back to oil. Now let's say, oh, I don't really want this. DD, I can delete it. And then I go to W. Do you want to delete this? I click yes. That is the main reason oil is fantastic. Also, just moving with the emotions is a lot better. Instead of going in order, let me just explain the file management, or how to bounce around the files, basically. These are the most important to me. So I have telescope.lua. Now, as I said, I can do minus, and I can go, jump between my files. But let's say I want to go back a directory a bunch, and I'm going all the way to the README. It's kind of a pain to go through the whole file tree. Then I want to go back to that telescope.lua. I go nvim, lua, nolan, plugins, and then telescope. You can see it's kind of not perfect for every solution, and it's really slow sometimes. So what telescope does is I mainly use it for the fuzzy finder, which I use find files primarily. Now, let's say I want to get to the README. I can do space FF, type README. You can see it's basically just a search bar. So you search for files inside the directory. So I click enter. Now I'm in the README. If I want to go back to telescope, I'll do telescope. I'm back in telescope. Now if I want to go to plugins, this is my markdown file for plugins, then back to telescope. So you can see it just makes things a lot faster, especially when navigating files and far out directories with telescope. So amazing. Okay, so now as the last file management or moving between files tool I have is Harpoon, which Harpoon is, I think, one of the coolest things in the world. So let's open up Harpoon. Now, a brief explanation of Harpoon is it's fantastic for bouncing between 2 to 4 files. So just like I was earlier, I was bouncing between telescope and README. If I was bouncing between them all the time, opening the fuzzy finder and searching README, that can be a bit annoying. Let me escape to cancel that. So what Harpoon does is, you see I click Control E to open the Harpoon menu. There's nothing there. I have it set to add a file with leader A. So let's say I click space A, leader A. Now you can see Harpoon has harpoon.lua. Now let's use the fuzzy finder to get back to my README. And then space A again. Now you can see I have harpoon.lua and readme.md. The way I have it configured is if I do Control H, I jump to the first file. If I do Control T, I jump to the second file. So you can see just super fast to bounce between these files. It's fantastic. It also saves where you were. So if I'm coding right here, doing some stuff, cursor's here, I go to the README, I'm working on some stuff, moving around. Control H, I'm right back where I was. I can also copy. Let's say I wanted to add a code block in my documentation. Let's yank that. And then let's go to this. And then I could add, add that there. But yeah, that is Harpoon. Now, just to quickly cover some of the other plugins I have, let's go to LSP config. So this is my LSP config. All LSP is a language server processor. It's like the warning notes you get. So in the errors and the, the missing variable and things like that. So for a while I had buff here, and you can see unused local variable buff because I'm not using it. So it's just bad practice to have that. So I'll replace it with an underscore, which means, or you can see if, say, I have a syntax error like that, missing symbol, parenthesis. So that's just all the LSP is. Now Mason is how I install the different language server processors. So you can see if I go to 2 for LSP, these are all the LSPs I have downloaded. So I have Go PLS for Go, Pyrite for Python, Lua language server for Lua, for Docker, Clang for, I believe, C++ and C. Yep. So this is just where I install it. Someone install something new. So I believe it's Jedi a thing. Yeah, there's Jedi language server for Python. You could click I on that. Let's jump to the top with 0. And it's installing a Jedi language server. And then inside LSP config is where I actually have it set. Do I want to use Jedi or do I want to use Pyrite? So that is this LSP config. Now let's look at conform.lua. Conform.lua is my code formatting tool. So what is a code formatter? So simplest example, let's say I have a bunch of extra space. I have it set to where whenever I save, it does the formatting. So I save, you can see it cleans that up. I could, move that down there. There's a warning for trailing space. I save, it fixes it. Now this is where you put what format you want to use for what language. So for Lua, I have style Lua set up, and Svelte, all the front end stuff is prettier. And then for Java, I have Google Java format. Go, I have Go FUMT. And then Python, I have black, etc. Now color scheme, this is just my color scheme for Lua and also the transparent background, nothing too fancy. Tree setter, now tree setter is syntax highlighting. So you can see dependencies is kind of blue, and then this is orange and this is green. It's just syntax highlighting. Waka time, super simple plugin. Waka time is just a tool that can track how often you're coding, what languages you're coding, and just cool stat keeping for, that I like to do. Now let's go up, go to set.lua. There's nothing. These are just settings basically. Nothing too fancy here. Relative number. You might see I have a 4 over there and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What that means is this means I'm on line number 4 right here. And then this is 1 line away, 2 lines away, 3 lines away, 4 lines away. So the reason that's so cool is, let's say I wanted to delete all this. I could just keep clicking DD, which is pretty slow and sloppy. I could highlight it and then click D, or I could use the relative number. So I can look, all right, this is 6 lines away and I want to delete all. So I do 6 DD. Deletes all of them. U to undo. And then these are just some other small settings, nothing too important. Remap.lua, these are my custom key remaps. I don't have a ton. This one is very cool. So I go to highlight, I highlight it, and then I shift J or shift K to move the whole chunk. And the really cool thing about this is, let's say conform.lua, it also works on indenting. So if I highlighted these 2 lines, you can see it moves where it's indented. Another key map that's pretty cool is to scroll half a page with Control J and Control K. It is basically a way to scroll up and down faster. So Control J to jump half a screen or half a page, and then Control K to move half a page up. So it's hard to see on this, but let's go to my README. And then if I'm at the very top, I could just hold down J and it moves not too fast or not too slow, but better is Control J, jump down half the page. Then Control K, jump up half the page. Now this is just so I can highlight text and then do Control C, and then I can also do Control V. So you can see if I'm in insert mode, Control V, paste it because it's in my clipboard. Lastly, this key map is to do a find and replace. Let's say I want to replace all of the word key map in this file or this buffer with another word. So I could do space S. You can see here it lives edits, not key map. And I could enter there and change it. Okay, so that is just my quick little Vim tutorial and showcase of my plugins and kind of how my workflow works with bouncing between files and all that. I'm still working on getting a lot of things set up, more auto completion, a debugger, especially for Go, as I use that a lot for work, and other things. So I hope this was at least somewhat interesting and useful to you. I will post in the description where I mismatch some of the pieces of this configuration from people, and I hope you enjoyed.